I received this comment from Cryptic Pyramid, and he writes, "Hi, I tried it out and the square just moves back to the top left and it doesn't move. What did I do wrong? Here's my code." Well, it's actually good to take a step and try to figure out how to debug this. And debugging is kind of challenging because you kind of have to know what could be wrong before you really get into it. And just looking at the code, basically, there's nothing obviously wrong here. So usually when I get a question like this, what I'll actually do is copy all of this code and I'll paste it into Text Wrangler. So I have Text Wrangler here, and you can see this is the same code. I've just copied and pasted the code in, and I've saved that as an HTML file on my system. Now, once I have that, I can actually open it up and I can look at the file and I can refresh, and you can see, oh, we do have an error here. So one of the things that helps is to open up your JavaScript console, and you can see I've already got it open here. You can actually toggle it on a Mac. You can hit Alt-Command-J, and that will turn it on or off. So I'm just hitting Alt-Command-J there. You can also go up to in Chrome. You can look at your menus, and you've got a menu for developer here, and you can select JavaScript Console there. So you can see here under the View menu, and that's kind of cut off at the top, but developer menu, JavaScript Console. So what this is saying is in this file, this crypticpyramid.html file on line 76, I've got an issue. So I can go back to my Text Wrangler application. You don't have to use Text Wrangler. You can use the text editor of your choice. I like it because it's simple and it works pretty well. But if you look at line 76, if we take a look at line 76, there is an error here, and it's not necessarily obvious right away. So the first thing I would do is I would take a look at last loop run. And it looks like this is as soon as I highlight that, I can see that it's also here. So if there were a real error with this variable name, if we had used something improperly, we probably would have seen that here. We would have seen last loop run, and it probably would have caused an error on line 72, which we're not seeing that. So the first error we encounter is this here. Now, date looks okay, get time looks okay, but here we can see where the problem is, this new keyword. And new is actually being highlighted other places, but you can see here new has a capital N. So in JavaScript, most things are case sensitive. When we think about variable names, function names, keywords, they all have to be entered in the right case. It's not always obvious because our minds kind of read uppercase or lowercase words very similarly. But when you're writing a program in any programming language, most of the time you have to get the case right. So if we change that and we save our file and we go back to our crypticpyramid.html and hit refresh, you can see now this is going to work just fine. We can move our little red square all around and it's going to just be fine. So usually that JavaScript console is a first indicator. If we go back to our file, there are usually a couple of other things that can go wrong. A lot of times it's a lowercase letter when it should be an uppercase letter, or an uppercase letter when it should be a lowercase letter. But the other thing that you should check out, a lot of times we run into errors where maybe we're looking at left and we should be looking at right. Maybe we're looking at right and we should be looking at left. Sometimes we're not adjusting the right variable name. Here we got Y and Y, and these are all okay. But I've seen other errors where someone is maybe not adjusting the right variable name, and that's causing problems. So, if here I change this to X, you're going to see very odd behavior when we refresh, because as I hit left, I'm going to be okay, but when I hit down, I'm moving to the right instead. This is not quite right. So we don't want that behavior. So you got to make sure that those match up as well. The other thing that happens a lot, and this can be very frustrating because it can be difficult to track down, is a lot of times programmers will enter braces or parentheses that do not match up. Now, if you format your code effectively, if you make sure that every time you open a brace you indent, and every time you close a brace you remove your indent, it's easier to find these, but even then it's not perfect. So if I introduce another curly brace here and I save my file and refresh it, you notice now I'm going to get unexpected end of input, and that's going to be on line 89, which is all the way down here, which is a lot harder to track down because now it's looking at this is now a new block, which is going to be kind of challenging to figure out. So if all else fails and you're getting these weird unexpected end of input errors, then I would take a look at your curly braces and try to make sure that they're matched up. Formatting your code nicely, it does take some time. It does take a little bit more effort up front, but it will save you a lot of time in the long run. So it's another good thing to look at. But the JavaScript console, usually, if you can take a look at that and you see red errors here, it's going to be an indicator that something has gone wrong. So try to take a look at that, before you get too frustrated, because it'll give you some information about what's happening. The last thing you can really do to start identifying what might be wrong here, those console.log messages that you can send. If I want to say, let's just log the key code every time here, and we'll just give it a little message. And if I hit refresh here, now anytime I press it, so these can really give me a great insight into what's happening in my code, so that it's not necessarily what I can see, but it's also little messages I can send to myself. And these can be very useful for identifying what might be wrong in your code. One thing I might do here is console.log x, and then show the x for the hero, and also show the y. And now when I refresh my screen, every time I move my hero, it's going to tell me exactly where they are. So different little things like that, different messages you can send to yourself that can be very effective in helping you figure out what might be wrong with your program. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you try to find some of the sources of some of your errors.